Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The daily U.S. death toll from COVID-19 continues to climb, with over 1,000 deaths reported nationwide Thursday for the fourth day in a row. Florida recorded a new record death toll for the third straight day, with 253 new deaths. Even as the outbreak flared to a new record high, officials in Miami-Dade County suspended all drive-through and walk-in COVID-19 testing until next Tuesday, as Tropical Storm Isaias strengthened into a hurricane over the Caribbean and barreled towards southern Florida. COVID-19 is now on track to become the third leading cause of death in the United States this year, after heart disease and cancer. In Chicago, 28-year-old COVID-19 survivor Mayra Ramirez spoke to reporters Thursday after recovering from a double lung transplant at Northwestern Memorial Hospital.
I think that I definitely have a purpose, and if that purpose is just simply telling my story to raise awareness for people to, stay safe and take this condition seriously.
The U.S. economy suffered the largest three-month collapse in its history during the second quarter of 2020, with the coronavirus crisis causing the equivalent of a 33% drop in annual economic output. The grim report from the Commerce Department came as lawmakers failed to agree to a new round of coronavirus stimulus spending. Enhanced unemployment benefits of $600 have now ended, as has a 4-month federal moratorium on evictions. As rent comes due, housing activists across the country are demanding local protections against evictions during the pandemic. In New Orleans, members of the Renters' Rights Assembly Thursday surrounded a courthouse that handles evictions, chaining themselves together under a banner reading "Evictions equal death," and blocking several landlords from entering the building. A similar action in Missouri Thursday also brought proceedings to a halt at a Kansas City eviction court. In Brazil, First Lady Michele Bolsonaro has tested positive for COVID-19 days after her husband, the far-right President Jair Bolsonaro, said he'd recovered from the disease after testing positive 3 times. Brazil has recorded more than 91,000 coronavirus deaths, second only to the United States. Spain recorded its biggest jump in daily coronavirus cases since ending a 3-month lockdown in June. Polish officials have imposed new restrictions on foreign travelers after Poland saw its biggest single-day spike in infections. Several French cities have announced new public health measures amidst a new surge in coronavirus infections. Meanwhile, in Greece, Doctors Without Borders says it was forced by local officials to close a COVID-19 center on the island of Lesbos, where more than 15,000 refugees are living in overcrowded and unhygienic conditions. Back in the United States, President Trump's facing bipartisan outrage after suggesting delaying the November election. Trump floated the idea Thursday morning at a time when nearly all polls project he'll lose against Joe Biden in November. Trump tweeted, quote, "With universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote," Trump tweeted. Voting experts say there's no evidence to back up Trump's claim. 5 states already conduct voting almost entirely by mail: Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington, and Utah. The president also does not have the constitutional power to postpone an election. Only Congress does. However, during a congressional hearing Thursday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo claimed the Justice Department can make that determination. Pompeo was questioned by Democratic Senator Tim Kaine.
Can a president delay a presidential election?
Senator, in the end, the Department of Justice, others will make that legal determination. We all should want, I know you do too, Senator Cain, want to make sure we have an election that everyone is confident in. It's not only for
Are you indifferent to the date of the election?
It should happen lawfully.
Right.
Yeah.
Even many Trump supporters have condemned the president's call to delay the election. Stephen Calabrese of the Arch-Conservative Federalist Society wrote in a New York Times op-ed, quote, "This latest tweet is fascistic and is itself grounds for the president's immediate impeachment again by the House of Representatives and his removal from office by the Senate," unquote. The attack on mail-in voting comes at a time when the Trump administration is facing accusations it's sabotaging the Postal Service under the newly installed Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, a former Trump fundraiser. Since DeJoy took office, he has instituted a number of cost-cutting measures that have slowed down the delivery of the mail. The Washington Post reports there's now a days-long backlog of mail across the country. In Georgia, family members, lawmakers, dignitaries gathered to honor the life of civil rights legend and Congressman John Lewis, who represented Atlanta for more than 3 decades and became known as the conscience of the Congress. Former Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton spoke, and Barack Obama delivered the eulogy. President Trump was notably absent. After headlines, will play excerpts from John Lewis's funeral service for the rest of the hour. Herman Cain, the former Republican presidential candidate and co-chair of Black Voices for Trump, has died at the age of 74 after a month-long battle with COVID-19. Cain's last public appearance came on June 20th when he tweeted a photo of himself at the Trump rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Cain wore no mask at the event, which featured thousands of people packed tightly together. He tested positive for the coronavirus 11 days after Trump's rally, where campaign officials discouraged mask use and were filmed removing social distancing stickers inside the arena. Cain was the former CEO of Godfather's Pizza and a cancer survivor. In 2012, he was briefly the frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination, but later withdrew from that year's race after 3 women accused him of sexual harassment. In climate news, a record-shattering heat wave has settled over the Middle East, with temperatures soaring across Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Syria. Baghdad recorded a high of more than 125 degrees Fahrenheit Tuesday, the highest temperature ever recorded in Iraq's capital city. Meanwhile, a months-long Arctic heat wave in Siberia has spread to Norway and northern Canada, melting permafrost, sparking wildfires, and bringing Arctic sea ice extent to a historic low. In Bangladesh, scores of people are dead, nearly 1 million homes flooded, and almost 5 million people displaced after torrential monsoon rains left nearly 1/3 of the country underwater. New research published in Scientific Reports finds coastal flooding exacerbated by the climate crisis may damage assets worth up to $14.2 trillion by the end of the century. In news from the occupied West Bank, the general coordinator of the Palestinian BDS, that's Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions National Committee, was detained Thursday after Israeli forces raided his home in Ramallah at 3 in the morning. Mahmoud Nawaja was handcuffed and blindfolded in front of his wife and 3 young children. BDS movement co-founder Omar Barghouti said the arrest is part of an Israeli campaign to, quote, terrorize Palestinian BDS activists and their families, unquote. The Washington Post has revealed the Department of Homeland Security has compiled intelligence reports on 2 American journalists who published leaked unclassified documents related to the agency's tactics to repress protesters in Portland, Oregon. The targeted journalists were Mike Baker of the New York Times and Benjamin Wittes of the blog Lawfare. In Chicago, Immigration and Customs Enforcement is being flooded by fake applications for the agency's so-called Citizens Academy, a 6-week program where ICE plans to teach attendees defense tactics and firearms familiarization to arrest undocumented people. The protest was organized by the Jewish organization Never Again Action. Immigration activists have been sounding the alarm over the initiative, which ICE hopes to expand nationwide. This is Liz Castillo, an organizer with Detention Watch Network.
At best, this school will serve as yet another mechanism for the Chicago ICE field office to attempt to cover the harm it perpetuates every day. At its worst, this program, which includes training in defensive tactics, firearms familiarization, and targeted arrests, carries with it a lot of potential to foment racial profiling and violent vigilantism towards Black people and other people of color.
In Arivaca, Arizona, Border Patrol agents raided a humanitarian aid camp run by the group No More Deaths Thursday. 1 person was detained. The camp, located some 10 miles from the border with Mexico, is used to provide water, food, and medical attention to refugees crossing into the U.S. through the Sonoran Desert, where temperatures continue to rise above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The raid came 1 day after No More Deaths published documents revealing the Border Patrol Union, a pro-Trump and anti-immigrant extremist group, had instigated a June 2017 raid of the same camp, calling in support from BORTAC, the Border Patrol Special Operations Unit, the same unit that was recently deployed to Portland, Oregon to suppress protesters. A New York judge has unsealed 2,000 documents from a 2015 civil lawsuit filed against Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite who's accused of luring girls to be sexually abused by convicted predator and sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. In the documents, one victim, Virginia Giuffre, says, quote, Ghislaine Maxwell brought me into the sex trafficking industry. She's the one who abused me on a regular basis. She's the one that procured me, told me what to do, trained me as a sex slave, abused me physically, abused me mentally, she said. Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested earlier this month. Epstein died in prison last year. And in Washington, D.C., human rights groups held a drive-through birthday celebration outside the Embassy of Saudi Arabia Thursday in honor of the political prisoner and women's rights activist Lujan alHafuz. She was arrested in May of 2018 after leading a movement to lift a ban on female drivers and to overhaul the male guardianship system in Saudi Arabia. Ahead of Thursday's protest, alHafuz's sister Lena published this message.
Hi everyone, my name is Lena. I'm Lujan alHafuz's sister. Lujan's a Saudi activist who's been in prison for more than 2 years now. And worse than this, she has not given any sign for almost 2 months. She's going to spend her 31st birthday in prison. And so Lujan, wherever you are, I wish you a happy birthday. I wish you freedom. I love you, and I won't let you down, I promise.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman.